got mail. Good morning, everybody. You're tuned to Computers 2K now on the NISA Communications Network. I'm Amnon, your host for the next hour, along with Nick.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Katie's here.
Morning.
Morning. And Spence.
Hello.
And Gal.
Good morning.
Full house.
We got everybody.
Yeah. Our number is 919-518-9773. Computers 2K voice on Skype. And today's show is made possible by vMix Software and is sponsored by Tom Sinclair of Live Streaming Gear. And before we go on, I just want to say to all our listeners, our Jewish listeners, Happy New Year. Actually, to everybody. Shana Tova and Happy New Year.
When was the New Year?
Wednesday evening.
Wednesday. Excellent. Happy New Year. New Year, New Year's. That's always been a thing.
It's the New Year. It's like Wednesday was Wednesday evening, right, Gal? Yeah.
Wednesday evening, yeah.
Yeah, it's like
But I
New
feel like
Year's
Jewish
Eve.
calendar, lunar calendar. The evening is the mark of the day.
Yeah.
Wednesday evening is when the New Year starts. Yeah. And if you want to
See-
make it even more complicated, with the calendar being over 2,000 years old, this Rosh Hashanah, right, is the middle of the year, because the actual, real, true beginning of the year is Nisan, which is Passover. So,
This makes me
if you
laugh.
want to make it complicated, give it to a Jew. They'll make it complicated.
I didn't say that at all.
You can't say it. I can say it.
No, but it's funny, though. I'm looking at my Google Calendar right now, and I
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
December 31st, and it says New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. So for the Jewish New Year, is it years or year?
I think that's just possessive.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's just grammar.
Yeah.
So it makes me laugh because if you have
So it's not just a Jew thing? Okay, good enough.
It's Shana Chadasha, so it's single. It's not
singular.
Shanim, which is plural.
Yeah, it's only
Gotcha.
one. It's 1 year. So, but hey, the New Year's, it belongs. This belongs to this year. So it's New Year's.
I have a question.
These are the
though.
complicated things.
So if you have a New Year's resolution you start now and you mess up, you can restart again in January. But then if you mess up again, you could start over the Chinese New Year, which is
Oh,
in
yeah.
February. And
So-
so don't ever feel bad. It's New Year, new me every 3 months.
I
New
always
Year's for the Jews is different than the Christian New Year. New Year for the Christian is like a whole party. You get smashed.
Whoa.
You make
you party.
non-responsible resolutions that you while embedded, you think you'll be able to. I don't know what happened to my camera.
Sorry.
While embedded, you think you'll be able to deal with, but then nothing is working. I'll
Keep
do it
going.
later.
Keep going.
Yeah,
Your audio is
and
fine.
then the next day you start thinking, what did I do? And
You start
forgive
repenting.
me and
Yeah.
stuff like that. That's the Jewish New Year.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about repentance, and it ends in Yom Kippur, so which is the mother of atonement, basically.
I think
So
I just
it's
like the saying
different.
New Year, new me.
Yeah.
I could say that every 3 months.
I always said that it would be great if there was, quote unquote, peace on earth and everybody respected everybody else. So we would probably be on vacation or off about 6 months out of the year, because we always have to respect this New Year's and this
Yeah.
it
That'd be nice.
would be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be disastrous for the economy. If
Well,
Yeah, but peace on
if-
Earth, Nick. It's worth the sacrifice.
yeah,
Nick.
now I somehow have a feeling that even if it led to peace on quote unquote peace on Earth, that would other 6 months would be very tumultuous or
It-
something.
it's a wishful thinking.
Yeah,
peace
that's
on
that's a
Earth. Yeah.
fact.
So peace on Earth would be rolling blackouts. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all
I
in
mean-
blackouts. Yeah. So, what's been happening? What somebody throw something here.
We
Complete
just,
and
go ahead.
go ahead, Spence. No,
I
sorry.
was just going to say, Pam comes up to me this morning with her phone. She said, "Look at this text," and it was a fake text that said our credit union name. Did you just send $712 or spend $712 at Target?
Mhm.
And I went through all the accounts, nothing even close to that. So they're using the actual credit union
Oh, yeah.
name, smaller local credit union.
Yeah, they
That's the first
figured.
It
time
has
I've seen
nothing
that.
to do with the credit union.
Oh no, I realize.
Don't trust text messages. I get text
No,
messages. all
they
the
would never
time.
send me text.
I think the
Okay.
interesting thing that Spence is pointing out is that typically this is like a Bank of America, a Chase, a Wells Fargo, but when you're spoofing small credit unions, that's a hyper targeted attack.
Yeah, they
I haven't dealt with that. My bank only has 2 branches, so I think I'm below the limit of of customers and accounts that are worth going after.
This is a local credit union that was at one time
It-
huge. I mean, they're still big, but they were a very large local employers credit union. So for RTP, so I
still
don't wanna-
spam.
Yeah. Oh no, it was obvious, but I just went through just in case to check to make sure that nothing had been
Yeah.
drained from any accounts. I can't forget a time, literally in the evening on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean. I get a call from the fraud department saying, "Did your card? Did you spend this in at such and such, like in London?" And it was like, "No, I'm in the Caribbean," and they caught it. And what happened was we were getting off the ship each day, and I had a debit card with me, thinking I would take some cash out at an ATM. Never used it. Only one day did I walk off the ship with the card. Never took it out of my wallet. Somebody sniffed it,
Ah,
and it was it was an older card, so the technology was not as secure as the newer cards are. So that prompted me. Now I have the sleeves for all my cards now in my wallet.
no. Yeah, they're on top of it. What were you gonna say, Nick? When you
I was gonna say complete and utter devastation in the western half of North Carolina and how Starlink has done an unbelievable job of providing service to people. It's been amazing to watch.
yeah, I was listening to your shows yesterday evening. You covering it, but this morning when I was posting to Twitter, I saw a notice from somebody that says that uh, shoot, FEMA is trying to put hurdles in the way of private choppers that are taking supplies up there. They don't want them to do it, sort of. Like,
Yeah, it's been a real disaster.
this is ridiculous.
They put a notice to airmen out, absolutely no air traffic in a certain area. That came a little later. The first story about this was a guy from Georgia who flew up and landed in a small town and was rescuing people. And in the middle of a rescue, the local sheriff said, "Stand down. I will arrest you if you go back."
Yeah,
And his
That
son
was in a town called Spruce Pines, and it was the fire chief. He was using the helipad behind the volunteer fire department, and he rescued a lady and then landed, dropped her off, and was going to go back to rescue her husband, and was told that if he brought another person back, he would be arrested. So he flew back to the top of this mountain and told this 80-year-old man, "Sorry, I your wife is safe, but I can't take you. I'm not. I can't get arrested."
Yeah, it was the fire department was authorizing the guy to help, and it
Yeah,
was the local sheriff that came in and said no. And
gotcha. Yeah,
they
what?
interviewed the town manager, and they gave all kinds of excuses. Oh, well, it's impeding the, and the guy actually walked out. He was able to walk down the mountain, and a rescue crew dragged him across a river with a rope around his waist through the rapids to get him out. He could have gone out on a helicopter, and they wouldn't let him do it.
Amazing.
It's been bad.
Yeah, that,
You know, I'm actually attempting to volunteer tomorrow. I'm driving out today. I have a friend who has a house in Fleetwood near
Mhm.
Boone. So I'm going to try to, I got the information for Samaritan's Purse for their day volunteers, where to meet. We'll see how that
I
goes.
there's been a lot of community support through TikTok, not from TikTok itself, but just uh people that have been filming it, and I've seen a lot of videos where people, even though they didn't have internet service, a lot of people filmed it so they could document it, and then there's been a lot of people's personal accounts that are showing their efforts and donations and all this stuff. And this one woman's video, she said it really touched me because she's like, she was in Greenville, South Carolina, and was like one of the only ones that had power in the area. And so she just started making food for everybody. And people wanted to support her, so she set up a Venmo, and then she set up an Amazon wish list. So I went on there and bought some baby supplies for her because with the Amazon wish list, it sends them directly to her. So uh, the social media has been great as far as like people from outside that can help send support. Like it was just easy for me to open up her Amazon wish list and send her baby formula and stuff like that.
Think about how information wouldn't have gotten out if we didn't have this kind of communication. It wouldn't have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
uh, it was absolutely crazy, and it's like more footage is coming out as people get service again or get access to internet. Uh, yeah, it's eventually I had to stop watching because it just became too overwhelming because because there were people that were there live on the scene, and eventually I'm just like I can't take I need a break. Like it's a lot of emotions happening.
yeah.
I was interesting that you say that, Katie, because I was reading this morning an article by a psychologist that said that there's an effect called secondary trauma, and
Yeah,
that if you watch too much of this stuff, you can actually affect your own mood to the point of it being really not good for you. And
that's
that,
exactly what was
yeah,
happening, and that I decided that I needed to take a break because I was
yeah.
getting anxiety, and thankfully, I mean, the only thing I had to deal with was a lot of rain. But I was getting feeling empathy and anxiety for these people that were struggling, and so I was like, I need a break, and I know they can't take a break because they're in the middle of it, but
You
I'm not
still,
gonna muted.
but you still have empathy and all that. You don't lose that. It's
Oh
just that
no, of
it's not
course.
affecting. Yeah,
Of course,
yeah,
and I try to do what I can, like I said, send them supplies to their Amazon wish list.
yeah.
It's upset.
Hannah called me Tuesday, uh, and she asked me about the diabetes supplies, the pills, and this and that. And I said, "Why are you asking?" She said, "Well, there's a doctor in Durham that is organizing, trying to collect a lot of insulin and things like that to take up there, and they're looking for anything that they can put their hands on." And she went and she said they filled up 3 trucks,
Oh,
Wow.
and they didn't drive it up there. They took it to the airport, and there wasn't enough. I mean, there was too much stuff to fit, so she used her Pathfinder to load, to take it to the airport. and she was excited because she said, "Oh, I got to go into the private airport and get on the tarmac and drive on the tarmac to the plane and all that." She said, "Ah, it felt so good to do that." But yeah, there's a lot of this happening, and it's great.
Yeah.
One of the real bright spots, and I've talked about this a lot, has been amateur radio. When the communication grid is as devastated as it is, um, there's been a lot of really the only communication from individuals has been ham radio, which has been really cool to track and follow. And I
Nick,
presume a lot of people are going to be getting their licenses
Nick, Nick,
after watching this.
do they, in cases like this, do they ever put up mobile repeaters for the low power stuff?
I don't know about mobile repeaters, but there was a repeater on the top of Mount Mitchell, which is the highest peak east of the Mississippi. It's like some 6,000. I was just up there a couple weeks ago. It's like some 6,000 feet above sea level. And this repeater has been on the entire time, and you can speak from Charlotte to Virginia to Tennessee on this repeater because it's so tall. Um, so I don't know if there's been any mobile I'm sure locally there's been some local repeaters that people have put up, but those aren't available. Like you can't stream them on the internet. The Mount Mitchell one, somebody was rebroadcasting online, and it had 7, 8, 10,000 people listening, and you could just hear the traffic coming through. People asking for updates on what's going on because they don't have power, they don't have cell service, they don't have anything except for two-way communication. So that's been pretty cool.
I bought that radio you mentioned,
hmm
and got the first manual, so I'm studying for my
Oh, excellent.
technicians.
Yeah, there's it's you probably won't need it, but I can guarantee listening to as much. I mean, I've probably listened to 20 some odd hours of ham radio traffic, just having it on in the background all day this past week, and it's it's absolutely saved people's lives. There's no question about it.
Can you suggest some frequencies?
Yeah, so I'll tell you to download an app on your phone called Repeater Book. It's
Okay.
free, and it will show you the repeaters that are in it based on your phone's location. It will show you the repeaters that are in and around your area. For you, Spence. There's 3 repeaters on the Nightdale towers on the WRAL, the
Mhm.
WTVD, and Fox towers that are there. I think those are the big active repeaters
Okay,
up
thanks.
in when I'm driving into Raleigh. That's what I put on my car radio, and just listen to what's going on up there.
Yep.
And then Starlink has really shined as there's no in some cases there's no even infrastructure for internet and electricity left. You've got these units that are being deployed and run off of uh we talked about this last week or a couple weeks ago, solar generators, which are essentially just big power backs, running off of these solar generators and giving people throughput to call relatives, text them, post things online.
Mhm.
um there was a post of a group of people stranded at a church, and they were able to get the information out on Twitter and Facebook and then be rescued because of that. Pretty amazing.
All right, let's switch here. This is interesting, and I promise everybody out there that this is not us. We are really here. Audio Overview, a new AI podcasting tool by Google, can generate realistic podcasts with human-like voices using content uploaded by users through Notebook LM. MIT Technology Review reports. Notebook LM, which is powered by Google Gemini 1.5 model, allows people to upload content such as links, videos, PDF, and text. They can then ask the system questions about the content, and it offers short summaries The tool generates a podcast called DeepDive, which features a male and female voice discussing whatever you uploaded. The voices are breathtakingly realistic. The episodes are laced with little human sounding phrases like man and wow and oh, right, and hold on, let me get this right. The hosts even interrupt each other.
What?
I listened to it. It is amazing. But I mean, come on.
Yeah, but so
It's interesting.
yeah, but what's the
Point.
not what's the point? What's the benefit? Like
Uh,
the
I-
whole reason you listen to a podcast is to listen to individuals. It's the same reason that people listen to radio and podcasting is because you're following either an individual, a certain talent, something like that.
I
This gets rid of all of that. So
Ye-
then what are you really
I think, Nick, that they took it a step. People took it a step further. The idea is upload information, videos, and everything, stuff that you're working on, let's say, and then
Okay.
ask it, okay, tell me about this, and hope that the AI will uh, provide some kind of a summary, some kind of a story about it, so you don't have to write it. And somebody took it a step further and said, well, let's do this, and they added audio and things like that. But yeah, I think it's just for fun. I don't think there's a benefit for a podcast
well,
like
it's
that.
it's
What are you
definitely
talking
for
about?
fun.
I'm sorry.
I'm
that
just
Say again.
I'm, I'm sorry that I'm still without a camera.
Oh, that's okay.
you're on
So,
your webcam mic now.
Yeah.
Mel.
You're not on your mic.
never mind. I'll switch it while you'll deal with it for a sec. So the point, the way I see it, is for eventually Spotify's like that, right? They'll create the AI that is the Joe Rogan replacement, right? And they'll
So-
start generating the stuff that people want to hear. And it doesn't matter whether eventually it won't matter for the listeners whether it's an AI or a human being, or they won't even be able to discern, right? It'll get to a point where the AI is interviewing human beings. I mean, it's going to get there eventually. And that's the point. The
Yeah.
point is not doing good here. It's let's see if we can, generate something out of thin air. And that's the point.
But what about the podcasters union? They're going to be pissed.
That's why it's an easy target.
Uh-huh.
But this
Oh,
is
wait.
but I think of my own listening habits and the podcasts that I listen to because of the personalities. It's
Mhm.
it now, yes, obviously it's the content too. But for example, there's this podcast I listen to called Ruthless, and it's a political show. There's a thousand, if not more, political podcasts that are out there. The reason I listen to this one in particular because I find the hosts funny, and I find their insight and their information what I want to listen to. AI won't have that.
Why not?
At least, well, it doesn't have it. I don't think it has it right now.
Agreed.
But I guess in the future, yes. But that's the one thing that now I guess if you were doing a podcast on the history of X or whatever, pick your topic, where you could have AI do a really deep dive into the history of something, and it would be all fact, just a super deep dive into something that might make sense, and that would actually be pretty cool because then you're getting a full history lesson of something all based off of actual facts and things like that. But outside of that, I just don't see the I don't see the draw because it's all personality driven. I mean,
Yep.
there's been a lot of talk about AI in radio. And there are some stations, I think it's Beasley radio group that has an AI jock that it's a female voice that they're running on a couple of stations as a test. But again, the whole reason that you listen to radio versus Spotify or something is to hear an individual talent. You like them, you follow them, you think whatever they bring to it is interesting. And obviously none of that is relevant when you're scrapping that and just having a computer read lines. Like you could have a AI Amnon do computers 2K now, but I don't think that would be very interesting.
No, it won't.
Because all of the people listen to it for the personality of the show, and that goes away. So I guess you'd have to start from scratch and build the personality. I don't know.
Yeah.
So think about this. Think about this. Wow, that's terrible.
You sound fine though.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gal.
What if there's a topic, right? You want to learn about something generates the content itself. Like what Amnon does before the show, right? He collects news articles across the web, right? That talk about, that deal with the stuff that we're interested. That part, right? We know that there are agencies, there are systems that already do that automatically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if you had an AI where you tweak the personality? It is exactly tuned to your liking, right? And it just, it just scours what's on top of the Reddit, the most heated topics on Reddit right now, right? And it presents to you as a podcast. There's no, it doesn't really matter who the personality is, right? As long as you want that data. And if you can tweak that personality to be funny at certain things, it needs to be viciously in its humor on certain topics, and you have that choice, right?
Gal, I think
that's the future eventually.
Gal,
right? That's what they're thinking of.
Gal, one of the best things about the show and the thing that makes it more interesting to people is the fact, yes, I can read a news story, and in the middle of it, you already start looking at it somewhere else, and you can interrupt and say, "Yeah, I'm not battered," but you're gonna lose that.
Yes, of course you're gonna lose
And
that.
that is what makes
so what
it.
is the part that we are emotionally attached to, because we wake up every Sunday, right? And we make a decision to go on the show.
Yeah.
And we know that there are a few people out there that it's interesting enough, either because they know us personally or they've been following the show for a long time and they really like the content. But that's the old world, right? That's not necessarily what's going to keep on happening. That's what I'm saying.
Well, look what Alan is put in the chat. Says there were some geography videos with an AI generated voice. Everything was perfect until they said places names and pronounced the two-letter state abbreviation the way they were spelled. Oddly enough, they got some easy to mispronounce place names correctly.
Yeah, but that's easy to fix. You
Yeah,
just, when you're generating your AI script, when you
Yeah.
put AZ or NC in there, you
Yeah.
have it.
Let's put it this way: in 5 to 10 years, right? That won't be a problem.
That's
right?
true.
Because it is becoming more prevalent. You start hearing a lot more of these AIs. It's no longer just an AVR. It's an actual AI that you are conversing when you call some sort of company to get some service, right? So you're getting that more and more. So there's money in improving that. So that will be solved really, really quickly soon. Right.
Yeah,
So
we need to come up with something, Nick, that will actually do switching also.
Easy. I mean, that's it. That's the easy part of it. But again, I just go back to and like what Alan was just saying, geography videos, things like that. I think AI video or an AI presentation of it makes a lot of sense. And if you're watching it strictly for information purposes, it's doesn't and unless you love the personality of the person that does those videos. But if you don't and you're strictly looking for straight fact and straight information, there's a lot of I think there's a lot there that makes sense. But the one I will go back to, and spending as much time as I have in podcasting and in media, the only reason that these mediums exist the way that they do is because of the personality. Joe Rogan's show is only interesting because Joe Rogan, the personality, is interesting to listen to. His content, if I'm being honest, isn't all that amazing. I mean, yes, he's
right.
got some interesting guests, but it's the personality of Joe Rogan that makes his show as successful and as popular as it is, in my opinion.
I
But
think
your
that
only assumption is that the AI will never be as interesting and in personality.
No, I think that absolutely will happen. Um, yeah, I'm just looking at, like, I just did a Spotify, the top podcast shows. I guess these are shows that are just on Spotify. The Sean Ryan podcast. Sean Ryan is incredibly popular. Navy SEAL, all that stuff. Joe Rogan, Candace Owen, Tucker Carlson, The Daily by the New York Times. So that's probably more of a news show. That's something that you probably could um
Yeah, let
the
the AI.
description is, this is what the news should sound like, the biggest stories of the day, blah blah blah, 5 days a week. Okay, something like that is probably makes sense. But most podcasts, I'm scrolling through this list, they're personality driven. And I just don't know how you're not going to replace that unless you build up the personality.
But what if it's just a surrogate for the personality? Let's say, Stephen Hawking type person with the same type of disability wants to run a podcast, right? This is definitely a tool for that.
Sure.
Right? So the personality will either be a human being in the background, or the AI will be tweaked in such a way that that unique personality will suddenly, be the interesting one.
Mhm.
I see that happening. I don't like it, but I see that happening. Let's put it this way: if C3PO would have done a podcast, right, it might have been an interesting one, and it might have not, right? But you'll definitely have somebody listening in, right? There'll be fans and there'll be haters, so it'll work.
Yeah. Well, all right. Give it a few years and then we'll revisit. Um Here is we were talking about automation, Nick, and you said that was the easy part.
Yeah.
Buck Schlegeris, CEO at Redwood Research, a nonprofit that explores the risks posed by AI, recently learned an amusing but hard lesson in automation when he asked his LLM powered agent to open a secure connection from his laptop to his desktop machine. I expected the model would scan the network and find the desktop computer, then stop, he explained in an email. I was surprised that after it found the computer, it decided to continue taking actions, first examining the system and then deciding to do a software update, which it then botched. He documented the incident in a social media post. He said that the AI actually logged into the machine, got himself a root to be root, and start doing things. That's that. That really can take you down uh, a hole that you may never come up with. I don't. Can you imagine an AI just getting into your system and Nick and I mean all of us know what it is. You have a computer and you have things in the system and on the computer that only you know about because you decided, okay, I'm going to put this here and then I'm going to put that here. And it's making more sense to have this than the operating system wants to put it there and blah, 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 blah. Then here comes an AI goes in and decided to do it. And the AI only knows to do it the right way, or let's put it this way, the way that the power that be decided it's supposed to be done because it learned on the
Again,
web.
for now.
Yeah, for now.
That's the thing. It's
Messed
all
up
for
a
now.
system.
But yeah. I can tell you one thing. I downloaded an app a couple of days ago. It's a to-do list app,
Yeah.
right? And its claim is it's an AI driven app to-do
Oh,
list
thank
for
God.
ADHD. Okay.
Okay.
And I was curious to see how that works. And I gotta say I'm impressed. So
Why?
because the way it works is you write the task that you are planning, right? And it breaks down that task to micro steps basically, right? And timing, and it can provide that's the AI part of it. The rest is just how to trigger the how to create the stimulus, right? That is necessary to keep somebody on task when they're absent minded, sort of, right? I'm really oversimplifying ADHD here, but the idea and the execution, very impressive. I gotta say, very, very impressive. Simple, effective, and it does that particular thing rather well. And that's a situation where I can see AI thriving, right now, immediately. Uh,
Can you give me an example of like something that you would type in and break? Do you have anything on that list right now? I'm just like, so if you
I
told
haven't
it like,
started using it, but from the test that I've done, right? I said, so my son was over here. We just helped him move,
Mhm.
and we need to get new curtains and put them in his living room, for example. Okay, so get new curtains for the living room. That's what I typed in,
okay,
and it gave a complete list of measure the window, go buy the appropriate curtains and curtain rod,
hmm,
install the right. It's like it took it and it just generated this very
Step by
fine
step.
to-do list,
Yeah.
and it added time assessment to each step, right? And so for those who are dealing with ADHD, this is my son doesn't have ADHD in this case. I am the ADHD person, right? But for those who are dealing with ADHD, this is gold
why?
because it's
It,
something that internally I do
So
not
you
have that
can,
capacity. So
yeah.
I am relying on other people for that,
Hmm.
right?
Does I guess my question would be, does it make it? Is it? And I guess maybe you can control this in the app. Does it simplify it too much where it's then annoying?
If it is, first of all, it's supposed to adapt, right?
Okay,
to
yeah.
to your to your needs, right? I've just got it to a very simple test run, but
Mhm.
it's impressive. It can help. The nice thing about it, you try it, it doesn't work for you, right? Then you don't use it for that task or whatever, or you modify it. But this starting point, that's what I'm saying. This starting point is very, very impressive. I've been using an AI tool for code writing for my own personal stuff. At work, I can't use it because there's a lot of limitation on how enterprises are accepting AI into their workforce and all that, right? And that's fine. Uh, but I've been using this the Visual Studio Code. It has, we talked about it, Katie. It has an extension called Codium, and that provides an AI assistant that helps you while you write code. Okay, and the way it works is as you start writing the code, if you remember what IntelliSense was promising all those years ago, is it'll autocomplete stuff for you, right? But instead of just autocompleting the next word of and giving you the possibilities that they can go, it actually shows you how the next code block, complete block of code, might look like based on what you're typing right now. And you can say, oh, yeah, this is exactly what I was writing right now. Let's add that. And then if something is not to your liking, you invoke the chat mode of it and you say, modify that block above to do this instead. And it does it. It shows you, it offers you the new code, right? For me, I know how to write the code. I know what I want to achieve, right? And it gets me there faster, much faster. Now, you give this in the hand of somebody who is not um
A
doesn't
programmer.
have experience coding at all, okay? Any language, then they'll just make a mess of it. But if I need to write, I don't know, Python code, which I'm okay with, but I haven't written a lot, but I've written code in many other languages throughout my career. Then now, right, I can immediately see if this is going to help me or this is going to need to change. And it does it with any language, with PowerShell, with Python, with
Hmm.
C Sharp, Fortran. I can suddenly write Fortran like a pro because I know what I'm expecting. I know the paradigms I want to use. I'm not so sure about, a complete block of code uh, at the get-go, but I can identify it when it works. Stuff like that. So it's the AI assisting is very, very impressive.
And it
As
never
somebody,
screwed you up?
It gave me bad code. I didn't use it. I used
Okay.
I modified my requirements, or I wrote the piece of code myself,
Hmm.
and then the next code it did correctly because it got the right context.
Okay.
Of course,
I'm on the other spectrum. As somebody that is new to coding, I use Codium and ChatGPT and any kind of like AI code assistant all the time when I'm programming something. And for the most part, the thing is because I'm coming at coding with like very basic limited knowledge. Um, the code that it gives me 9 times out of 10 does what I want it to do. And I just don't know enough to ask it to do more complicated stuff, so then there's less likely for it to freak out. But but I I don't use it to write the whole game. Like I've seen people that are like, "Oh yeah, I made a solitaire game for me," or this, that, and other thing. I already have in my mind kind of what I want it to do, and I even have some of like the things like, "Hey, I need an array list," or "I need this," or whatever. Can you write it like that, or whatever? And it'll give me it. And for like, I'd say 9 times out of 10, it works right out the gate. But again, I'm asking it like simple things and not as complicated as probably Gaul would ask for things.
no. I'm actually I'm impressed by the simple things because the simple things still might need 5 lines of code, right? That if I that it can make it very easy to write instead of taking me, I don't know, a minute to write those correct 5 lines of code. It's only in 10 seconds it did it, and it does it for every block of code that I want to do it. So it's an impressive accelerator of time, right, to
Also,
get the
I
result.
I use it. So ChatGPT for coding is amazing because not only does it just give you the code, but it breaks it down for you. Like it explains it, which is
Right.
what I was learning so much. Just the simple thing of like, yeah, okay, how do I get the code to change the color of this object? And
Right.
and and it was like, okay, well, you need this component. Why do you? And then it would be like, you need this component because of the render settings of the software or whatever. It would like break down each one instead of just giving me the code. So for a learning tool, it's been great. And I mean, I can't say nothing but great things about it. Yeah, there's issues, but
Yeah.
it's part of the learning process.
Mhm.
And Nick, to your point where you asked, wouldn't be too annoying if if it broke it down too much. So to Katie's point, she likes the explanation of the code. I don't like it because ChatGPT, the way it types, right? It's like it takes a long time for stuff to type, and I just want to move to the next code. So I
Yeah.
tell it, just give me the code. I don't want any explanation, right?
Sure.
I've
Stuff like
got a
that.
couple
So
of
you can control it. Yeah.
That's
got
true.
a couple of observations. I've been listening, and from the perspective of you guys know what you're looking for.
Right.
You know when something isn't right.
Yep.
Where will we be when there are no experts like you left? Because everything. Well, let me finish.
I know.
If we get to the point where you just say, "Create this for me," and you don't even know what goes into the creation of it, that's a danger, I think. But I looked at this from a different perspective. I went out and I looked at what kind of disorders are there from having AI friends, for example. And you can find page after page after page of psychologists who are looking at this, saying that our brains are evolved to have human interaction. And when we don't have that anymore, if we rely on, they said there's already people who are getting into new territory with disorders based on having AI friends. And if that's the only friend you have, what that does to you. So it said, our brains have evolved to fear uncertainty. What will be left for humans to do as AI improves? Will we feel like we have no purpose or meaning? It said, will we suffer the inevitable depression that comes with that? There's already causes for concern about the impact of AI on our mental well-being. So that's where my concern is. And I think that Nick's point about having another human on the other side of the podcast who is interpreting and doing and interacting with the guests or whatever is important for us because we need the social contact. If we lose that with AI, I think that's the danger.
Oh, first of all, we're in agreement on the impact of AI, but if the question arises of why, I can understand why certain research is happening, why certain attempts are made, and why, even though it sounds ludicrous, and I agree it sounds ludicrous, why this is moving forward. Okay, so I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying, oh, I understand.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, look,
Yeah.
well, look at the advances we've had in the last 50 years just by having computers.
Exactly.
How it's advanced. Before, when it took to do research, it took forever. Now we can get it done quickly. And that's great, as long as we look at AI the same way, as that this is a tool to help us, our brains, advance. So that
Right.
we always look at it that way, that we're building a generation of experts who know this. And I always fall back to that movie Wall-E. Does anybody remember that movie about the
Yeah.
people that lived on the cruise ship that got stranded and they didn't even walk anymore. They just would ride around and get their food and the ship did everything for them. And it was a comedy and how they broke out of that. But that's the danger is will we get to the point where we don't rely on our own brains anymore. We just let it all happen.
I don't know if I want a lot of the other people to think too hard. There's a lot of dumb people in the world.
Because I think about it. What if one of you on this show was an AI? What that would be like?
I dare somebody to make an AI like me.
Don't.
Yeah.
We can only handle one, Katie. The last thing we need is a second.
If it gets too perfect,
Spence.
if it gets too perfect, people can't make idiots out of themselves.
Let me tell you what, though. So I've actually been using AI a lot in the last couple of weeks, and I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but I will. So I'm doing this new radio show in Charlotte, and while AI is not doing my content, because of the time of the show and how it's formatted and segmented, I am using AI to summarize much longer pieces of content down to specific times. Now, that's something that I'm more than capable of doing myself, but I have been taking longer format content and saying, turn this into a 90-second summary. This would be an article that is 1,200 words or something. That would be 1,200 words in the way in which I speak and read and discuss on the radio. That's easily 10 minutes because I can jump in and out and add context and whatever. And it's been very good at that. But I don't really consider that AI. I mean, that's not you're not really
It's
having AI do anything. That's something that is more algorithmic than it is quote unquote AI. Um, so that's what I've been using it for the last couple of weeks.
It's
But we're also struggling. We're also dealing with I think an AI plague of anything and everything is AI.
yeah.
And I there have been other services I have used in the past, well before quote unquote AI came out, that did
well,
things like summarize articles and take longer pieces of text and
Shorten them.
shorten them and try and keep all the context. I don't really consider that AI, even though that's what it's called.
So well, first of all, you're completely right because it's not AI. It's not general AI. It's LLMs, right?
But
And
but if you ask a majority of people,
Uh-huh.
they will describe
right,
that as AI.
right. But so LLM are the last fad in the AI train of ideas and technologies that are being developed, right? And yes, and what everybody's calling AI right now is not AI. It's not sentient. It's not it does not create anything out of thin air. It relies right on existing content. There's
Sure.
a fantastic caricature I found from I don't remember if I sent it to you in the group, but you see like a bunch of people just walking and looking at their phones, and at the sidelines you see two robots that are creating and reading and actually doing something, right? So we're at the stage um, where LLM is the new shiny toy, and there's always this new shiny toy, right? At the beginning of the '90s, it was the internet. But it would be message boards and the World Wide Web, right, and stuff like that. And when we got to the beginning of 2000s, then um, that's when we got social media, Web 2.0, right, and all that. And what 5 years ago, the biggest thing was crypto, and so every time there's a new shiny toy, and right now LLMs are the new shiny toy. There and most of our discussion is actually not about the new shiny toy. We're just thinking forward because there's a lot that we are concerned about. Like Spence said, the effect on the human brain of just interacting with something and giving it life, right? We are talking to ChatGPT. That is not a person, that is not a personality, that is not, but it always feels like there's a personality on the other end feeding us the information that we asked for. This is not C3PO. This is something else, right? So there's that. There's a fantastic anecdote that I've read that shows this, that lights this very well. It's from some sort of lecture where a professor um, he holds two pencils, and he gives the one of the pencils a name, right? And he talks about what the pencil can do, etc. Basically, give it humanizes the pencil, and he does this for a minute, a couple of minutes, and then in front of the audience, he just breaks the pencil, and the reaction is that about half of the people in the audience, right, they gasp in horror, right? How would you do that, right? And this was just a pencil and a
Mhm.
story. We as humans, we tend to humanize things very, very fast, right? Immediately, we create a personal connection with something. And so that's why people they name their cars, right? That's why people uh, they give personality to whatever they're using, and that is what we need to work on, right? And that is what we need people to understand is these are tools. We need to use them as tools. They can be very helpful, but you should not give them too much power, right? Because eventually,
absolutely agree.
yeah, eventually we are going to get to the point where we lose control, right? We already cannot do without electricity, but we never gave electricity. We never humanized electricity, right? We never gave it power over us, not completely. And I'm thinking AI is the one that might be the most dangerous that we've created up until now as human nature, right? Human culture. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
guess
will
it's
I stop
important.
using it? I don't think so.
It's important that we have people thinking about all this stuff as we steer our way forward. So,
I mean, Spence, you and I, we've read a lot of 50s and 60s sci-fi.
oh yeah,
Asimov, right? If you remember, Asimov had a short story about this young guy who was he was mad at the world because he was picked out of society and put in this school for special people. And at first, he thought that he was like weeded out as the weakling until he understood that this particular campus was for those who actually create, those who actually think, those who actually manage the technology of the world, because all of the rest they're useless. And somebody needs to make sure that the machines continue working and that right that science continues evolving. And it's just a very very select small group of people who actually can do it. So
think about how forward thinking that was.
yeah, yeah. No,
Amazing.
they've
I love sci-fi because it's almost a prediction of it is a prediction of what the future is going to be like, and what people think about as not possible, like the rockets coming back and landing on the pad. That was when I was a kid. That was like unachievable. It was just science fiction. It wasn't going to happen. And look, now it's like it's a regular thing.
Yeah, and the only reason NASA didn't develop them to return was because they were on a race and
Yeah.
they needed to make sure that they do something first, right?
And it had to be
So that's why
super reliable. Yeah. They developed the engine for the ascent stage for the LEM was brand new territory. They said we can't have we don't want anything that needs an ignition source. So they came up with the idea of mixing two chemicals. I think it was hydrogen and something else that created a reaction that made thrust. And had it not been for that, they could have. The only thing that could have gone wrong was the valve wouldn't open to create the thrust. So they put a manual valve in case. So it was so ultra reliable that although
Well,
you look at the Starliner, they took that same idea of two reacting chemicals into their reaction control system. That's what they used, but they screwed it up, and it's not reliable. So, oh well.
all right. We're past the hour, but it's okay. It's good stuff, and everything is positive. But here is something not so positive. Microsoft has discontinued Windows mixed reality support in its latest Windows 11 update, rendering a number of VR headsets obsolete. The move, reported by Upload VR, affects devices from major manufacturers. An estimated 80,000 users will lose access to their headsets upon upgrading to Windows 11 24H2. That's
interesting.
amazing.
That's not surprising because 2021 I entered into Microsoft's Devathon for their VR system that they just released, and
Yeah.
so we had to build a game and use their VR system, and I made the game, entered it, blah blah, and then like 6 months later the whole department was cut. And what happened is AI came along. So VR was the buzzword when I was working at my tech company. They wanted all VR business and how to incorporate VR. And then AI got to the point where it started overshadowing VR, so they cut their losses on the VR stuff because they just couldn't make any money off of it, and switched and pivot to AI. So that's what happened.
Right. So your company was a graphic design, was in the world of design and graphic design.
No. That company was app and technology. They were a Microsoft company.
Okay. So the company I worked for, right? Just cybersecurity company. And they were like trying to do some VR presentations for customers and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Right? It's like VR, the new shiny toy,
Mhm.
right? Back then it was VR.
Yep.
And yeah, and I mean we all know Meta and their metaverse, right? How much they've put into it, and basically that bubble burst big time,
Yeah.
right? Like nothing happened,
Yeah,
literally.
companies just could
Yeah.
not make any money off of it.
Yep.
And so they pivoted.
Yeah, but to take it away to make it completely, I mean, you spent not $29.95, you spent good money on a VR set, and
Yeah.
now
Yeah,
Windows is completely
but
rendering it unusable.
uh,
That's bad.
I mean, how is it any different than 3D TV? You spent
Yeah.
$6,000 on a television with these stupid glasses. I mean, it didn't. It doesn't. Not everything catches on. I mean, VR has caught on way more than 3D did, and it's very popular in the gaming aspect. That's that still continues to be the primary use case. But like we're seeing with AI, and as Gal just noted, a security company jumping on the bandwagon of VR. That's just what every company did because it could have been the next big thing. And the idea that your competition would be on the train and you're not is an issue. And
Everybody
it
got
sometimes
FOMO.
it works. Yeah, well, it's not even just FOMO. It's just the idea that if this is the next big thing and we aren't a part of it, it could cripple, it could render our business non-existent. And unfortunately, I think you're seeing a lot of that with AI now, like I was
right.
describing earlier, and like Gal mentioned, most of the things that are described as AI are not AI. Like
No, it's just a
they're
buzzword.
it's not even not AI. It's many cases it's not even machine learning. It's just I don't even know what you would describe it as. It's simple algorithms which have existed online for forever. I mean, for 20 years, algorithms have existed. And
Well, I
that's what a
mean,
lot of this stuff is.
LLM has been like substantially right upgraded with the work
Yes.
of OpenAI and all that. But yes, these are not. It's not generally generative AI yet. And the one very positive thing that this boom in AI. And by the way, this is not the first time AI does this. Uh, uh, does this huge boost in marketing and presence and all that. We had that when Google started, basically, right? Some of it was called AI, the way you get the results you're looking for, right? Because that was a new experience, right? So we're gonna see these cycles again and again and again. So the most positive thing we got out of LLMs at this point is having those discussions, making that so uh, the research that Spence was reading about, right, will happen. We just need to wish that, because the track record of humanity shows that we're usually late to the party in understanding what we did, right? And we're looking at stuff when it's too late. One of the things that we didn't see enough, and I'm hoping we will see in the coming years, is more legislation that is specific to the use of AI going forward. I hope it'll be one that will not hinder research, but will hinder usage, right, of these research tools in the marketplace. because the marketplace is probably not ready for that. Not really.
Why do you hope there's legislation for it?
Because when it comes to common sense, that doesn't exist when you're looking at the marketplace, right? That comes from limiting what can be done and slowing down the pace, right? And that's the only thing legislation can do. It can just slow down the pace. It
Yeah,
cannot get rid of
Yeah,
anything.
you're gonna run
no.
into the issue though of can
You're
you
gonna run
prove
into
it
a
was
few
AI or
ton of
not?
issue. Of course, there's
It's
gonna
like
be a ton of issues.
how do you prove that something is done with AI?
Legislation has zero to do with how to, right? That comes later. And
No,
it's
I
always
know,
a
but
mess.
if
I agree. It's always a mess, but you need to start somewhere. Are you ready for AI to do surgery on you?
yes,
Okay. So
But let me make that. This comes back to if a company wants to offer that, they're going to have to prove it to the to the consumer in this case. Even though you're consuming surgery, people don't think of it as a consumer, but to the consumer, that this is a valid form of surgery.
I
and
think
you want to tell me that there are those who will jump on the bandwagon without even taking without doing
wait. Well,
their
if you're
deep
gonna use
thinking?
that example though, there's already things in place like drugs made by people have to go through like 10 years of trials. And so it just because it's made by a person or an AI or whatever, there's all these tests in place.
I mean, didn't
So
Apple fight for like 10 years to get FDA approval on something with the watch that they just got?
yeah,
It was
it's like
something with heart rate monitoring
there's
or whatever.
there's checks and balances. I don't think that just because something is made with AI that it's gonna pass over, uh, especially when it comes to human consumption or something that's gonna involve a person that like affecting the person, if that makes sense. Like FDA, food stuff, and I mean I can go on ChatGPT and it can give me a recipe. Uh, I don't know.
True.
I mean, as far as r- machinery and legislation and all that, um, Gal, I don't think there was any legislation for the robots that built the car that you're riding.
True.
They
But
just
those
they just did it, and they found an easier way to do it, and perfected it more and more and more on their own. So legislation is okay when things are, I think, running amok, and like I mean, everybody's going into different directions, and the people that are running all this are saying, you know what, we need to get together, we need to do things the right way and all that, and this way people are running all over the place, and we're getting bad names for the whole thing, so they can
okay.
ask for legislation. I don't think the
So
government should
let me
come
ask you
down.
this. Let me ask you this. Okay. When you have a tool that can be used to write legislation,
Hmm. Well,
okay, when you have that tool and you teach that tool how to write it effectively,
and
right?
that's how to write it effectively, according to my opinion, because
No,
I cannot teach it.
according to evidence of this tool wrote legislation that passed.
Okay.
This the test is very simple. It's not a complex one.
Okay, let's go
So
on. Okay, let's
the
go
the
on.
the feedback loop will eventually get close, and when that tool will be able, right, to write the legislation that it can,
Hmm.
right, and do it efficiently and faster than, even though human beings are the ones voting for it, right?
Hmm.
uh, if you get that tool to do that without having legislation in place to stop it in advance, eventually it will run over you. So
Okay.
that is a very good example, right, of something that you need to brace yourself in advance on this. You need
I
to
guess
take care in advance.
I guess I'm confused because even with Umnun's example of the car, it doesn't matter how you make the car. At the end of the day, it has to pass the whatever the U.S. board
Yeah.
of car things, and everything before it goes to consumption has to pass a final test in whatever industry that it's in. So I don't think people care as much as how it gets there, other than like you're not taking advantage of other people and you're not using harmful chemicals. But at the end of the day, it has to pass the final test. If an
And
AI
what
does something that passed that final test, then there you go.
and what happens when that board is being run by AI?
I think if the product is fine and the product solves a need, then it's fine. I
Yeah,
don't
but
see an issue.
when you do not have control over why the decision was made, and you gave that decision to something that you no longer have control over its incentives, right? That is when you lose control. And that's a problem. That's a future problem that we're looking at, right? What happens when the machine is controlling the human experience? What are the
But but
goals that it's going to give?
but it
That
does
it's
that
going to
already
put?
though. I guess I guess where I'm confused and don't see this as a big of an issue is it, it's something is not going to be put out into the wild in the United States. It's not going to just be put out into the wild without testing. Because of the fear of being sued. So like a business that makes a product, whether it be a service or or a physical item, is going to have to go through some kind of testing or whatever it is, and before it can get to the customer. That doesn't mean that people won't make harmful things or AI won't make harmful things, but I guess I don't know. I just don't care who makes it as long as it doesn't kill me. Whatever it
So
is.
if you go back to science fiction is an awesome reference point here because it's creative work based on like specific assumptions, right? And not very complex, not very realistic one necessarily, but specific assumptions, and then you can build a future, right? It takes you either to a dystopia or an utopia. And what Asimov did best was the three laws of robotics. And we are today at a point when we're thinking about how we design computers, how we design software, how we design these LLMs, that these three of robotics, they make sense. And the first law of robotic was a robot should never harm a human. Okay, very simple. And the second law of robotics, etc., there's like these set of ethical questions, not technical questions, right? About what they are and how these robots affect humans. We are today at the point where those ethical questions, they need to be discussed and they need to be figured out, because right now, right, when we're talking about Facebook, TikTok, and all social media, the algorithms that are running behind, those are large language model based algorithms, right? Their incentive is to keep you on the platform. Is that harming a human being or not? If all they do is feed you fear and they control your anger, basically, right? This is where we're at today, not in the future. We're already there. So, what happens when we give it more control? Because right now it's already feeding us anger and fear, right? What will happen when the incentive will be buy more cars, or the incentive will be that doesn't come from the marketplace, right? That's why I'm saying legislation is probably the area where this ethics, this actual positive ethics will come. Will they do it right? Hell no. Politics never does this right, especially not on the first try. But it's an iterative process. Those checks and balances systems that we are talking about, they've been created by these iterations of where At first, it was a complete fiasco, but then it becomes a process that actually works, right? And those iterative processes, I'm not sure that we as human beings have enough of them compared to giving the AI to run amok. Because when that will happen, I don't think we'll be able to catch up. That was gloomy.
Sorry, I had to get up, and one of the lights here went out and then started flickering, and I didn't want it to catch fire or something, so I had to get
All
up
I know
there.
is that I talk really nicely to my computer, so that one day when it becomes sentient, it doesn't decide to kill me.
Don't count on it.
Yeah.
All right, and now just to finish, something that everybody can bite into. Look at the top right corner of your phone. You might see an icon with 5G and another with vertical bars showing the strength of your internet connection. Those symbols don't mean what you think they do. If your phone shows 5G, you're not necessarily connected to the latest and zippiest cell phone network technology. It might just mean that 5G connections are available nearby. And the bars are a cellular version of a shrug. There is no standard measures of how much signal strength each bar represents. The connection icon is a lie, said Avi Gringart, president of the technology analysis firm Texponential. Texponential. The good news is you might not need 5G anyway. Most of the time, your phone calls, texting, and web surfing are perfectly fine on the prior generation called 4G or sometimes LTE. Many phone networks will funnel you over 5G service when it makes real difference, like if you're on a video call or playing an intense video game. Now, here comes the interesting part. If you see more specific types of 5G icons, like 5G UW used by Verizon or 5G UC if you're on T-Mobile service, he said you're probably connected to 5G network at the moment. Those extra letters or symbols sometimes indicate types of 5G technology that are capable of faster and more reliable connections, but they aren't always better. Depending on your circumstances, and confusingly, AT&T has showed 5G-E icons on phones. That is not 5G service at all. So it's interesting. You can find out if your company is actually giving you 5G connection. Yeah, you can do it by testing the speeds and stuff. But I mean, I'm on T-Mobile, and sure enough, I went and turned off on Wi-Fi, and it says 5G UC. And I guess that means that when I'm on cell here at the house, which the cell unit is, I mean, the cell tower is about, I can spit and hit it, then I am on 5G. So you can look at your phone and see what it says and figure out what's going on with your service. There's a cat coming out of your head.
There's a cat.
There used to be an option on the iPhone to switch the bars to percentage, and I think it's still there.
Oh,
That would make
I-
any difference.
I
I
don't know.
always see one bar with AT&T at home.
Me
Never
too.
anything better. And we had that 2-day outage from AT&T, so we had to use our
Watch out.
Uh,
I'm at 2 bars.
yeah. So I've been places where there are 4 bars, and I don't really see much difference in the performance. But it works okay with 1 bar, so it's really not a good indication.
I've got full
It's
bars.
terribly slow. Yeah. Mm. Yeah,
Mine's switched to the internet.
Uber?
Uber.
Full bar. All right. Anything else before we sign off?
Nothing new.
Nothing. Okay. Well, it was fun. We learned
While
a
it
lot.
lasted.
Hmm?
It was fun while it lasted.
Well, no, it'll still go on as being fun.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Gal. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Katie, Spence. And good morning, Kathy, Hannah, Nabil, Mac, Norm, Donna, Dina, Mati, Eleanor, Sarid, Yaakov, and Yael. Thanks, everybody, for tuning to Computers 2K Now. We hope you enjoyed and maybe learned something from our time together. Remember to practice safe computing. Back up your hard drive, update your virus scanner, and change same passwords where you use them. We'll be back here next Sunday at 9, but you can always reach us at computers2know.com. Monday through Friday, 5 till 6 a.m., Nick hosts the Carolina Journal News Hour on WBT, 1110 a.m. and 99.3 FM. And he's also on YouTube, so just search for it. And Nick and Brian host the Infection Podcast on Twitch. That's for survival games, gaming news, and some political comments here and there. Just go to infectionpodcast.com and find out when the live show is this week. Or you can just download the latest podcast and play it and enjoy it yourself. See you all next week.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com and DeltaForce.net.